everyone, it's been a really long time since the last episode in my frequently asked questions series, so I thought I'd get back to it and answer some of the questions I get asked a lot in my YouTube comments as well as on Twitch stream. Question: I can't afford multiple ascended weapons. What sigil should I use if I only have one set? This is a great question, and I get this one quite often. If you only have one set, you should get a set of sigils that functions in every Dungeons and Fractal without being useless in any others. The first sigil will always be Sigil of Force, since that is a good sigil in every dungeon and every occasion. The second sigil depends a little bit on the types of groups you generally run with. If you run in organized groups, or you screen your pugs for capable players, I would suggest Sigil of Air, since it's a rather large DPS increase. Sigil of Air, however, is currently bugged and has a 5-second internal cooldown instead of the 3 seconds it's supposed to be, and be aware that when this bug is fixed, it will actually be even better than it is currently. If you run with non-meta groups, or sort of anything goes YOLO pugs, other options include taking Sigil of Frailty or Sigil of Strength depending on your build. In general, Frailty is a bigger party-wide DPS increase, but Sigil of Strength is much stronger as a personal DPS increase, and it works very well if you pair it with Strength runes, which means it lends itself pretty well to Warrior or Necro. But overall, you can't really go wrong with Force and Air as your catch-all sigil set. Question: which class is the best for a PvE condition damage build? Alright, so far and away the best PvE condition damage build out there right now is Engineer. Assuming you have like a 30-second long fight, a condition damage Engineer has better DPS than a full Berserker, Guardian, or Warrior. So it's really no slouch in the DPS department. Additionally, condition damage Engineer still produces a decent amount of vulnerability stacks, so it's able to contribute to a group what an Engineer is expected to contribute to a group in good team play. In addition to being really good in group play, a condition damage Engineer is the strongest class for condition damage boss solos by a pretty good margin. All in all, condition damage Engi is comparable to a Berserker build from many other classes, and the only real limiting factor to condition damage Engi being the meta Engineer build is the fact that the Berserker Engineer is even better. Question: why isn't Venom Share Thief viable in PvE? Well, this question isn't as ridiculous as it would have sounded about 3 months ago. Sinister Venom Share Dagger Thief is almost close to viable. If you can time it so that your Venoms hit a few seconds before the cooldown comes up, you can get double the poison stacks back to back for some insane burst damage. The build does have a strong initial burst, but suffers from big problems. First of which is that between the poison bursts, the damage falls off a cliff. You do make a decent amount of bleeds with Death Blossom, but it's not significant enough to fill in the gaps between the poison spikes. Additionally, the Venom Share suffers from being sort of an all-in build. Every part of the build is required for it to be useful in terms of dealing damage. And one of the reasons people bring Thief in PvE is because of their utility, like blinds with Black Powder, and Shadow Refuge, and Smokescreen, and Signet of Agility for extra dodges, and Scorpion Wire for pulls, for Needle Trap, Shadow Trap, etc. The Thief brings a lot of utility that people look for. Every spot on your bar you dedicate in a Venom Share build to additional DPS, and for every utility you swap out to take away from DPS and add more utility, drastically reduces the power of the build. So, all in all, in order to be a good team player, you have to drastically reduce your DPS. And if you're drastically reducing your DPS, you're not really worth using the Venom Share build in the first place, because the Berserker build already does better DPS and doesn't have to lower its DPS in order to bring good utility. So it's Venom Share is very selfish and doesn't bring the necessary support that people look for in a Thief build in organized group play. Which profession does more DPS, blank or blank? I get this question pretty much constantly, and the answer is it really doesn't matter. That may sound strange coming from me or from my guild, but it's true. When we, or any other speed clear guild, form a team for record runs or even casual daily runs, we do not think about DPS rankings. The first question we ask is, what support do we need for this dungeon? Do we need stealth? Do we need reflex? What's our plan to get 25 might? What's our plan to get 25 vulnerability? Will we be able to maintain 100% swiftness on the party? Once we know what utility support we need, we can pick our team. So we select our team compositions not based on any sort of DPS rankings, but what role they fill in support and utility. A warrior might bring might and DPS boosting banners, and Ellie brings fury and swiftness. Thief or NG provides stealth. Guardian or Mesmer provide reflex and condition cleanses. Our goal is rarely to make the top DPS team possible. It's to make sure all our support needs are met. Once we know our support needs and get them filled, then we look to maximize our DPS without compromising support. That means once you know you have to bring a warrior for phalanx strength, the goal is to bring the best phalanx strength warrior possible. Once you know you're bringing 2 elementalists, we try to bring the 2 best elementalists possible, and so on for each team member. What this means is that it's not relevant how DPS Thief compares to DPS Guardian, because they are not competing for the same spot in the party since their roles are different. It is much more important to know how DPS compares inside a profession. How much better Staff Ellie is than Scepter Dagger Lightning Hammer Ellie is important and useful information. Much more important than knowing, for example, how Mesmer compares to Engineer. So that is basically it. You want to know how the different builds within a profession compare to each other, rather than how different professions compare to each other. Alright, so that's it, guys. Thanks for watching my frequently asked questions video. If you guys have any questions that you want answered in a future video, leave them below, and I will do my best to get the good ones included. Other than that, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next time.